We don't have to worry about nothing, 'cause we got the fire, and we're burning one hell of a something.
Hello and welcome to A Day in Film. Today's film in question is The King of a Sacred Deer, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos and starring Colin Farrell and Barry Keoghan. So I am kind of familiar with Yorgos Lanthimos' work. I've seen The Lobster, which is, I think, also a great film, I think on par with this film. And unfortunately, I have not seen Poor Things yet, but I've been hearing great things about it, so I'm sure that movie is either on par, maybe even better than these two films. But I went into this movie kind of expecting something similar to The Lobster, and I was very happy with what I got. This movie, a lot like The Lobster, manages to be really unnerving and creepy pretty much the entire time. There really isn't any downtime in this movie where you're not unnerved or waiting for something bad to happen. And I have to credit both the actors and the score for that, because one, on the acting front, everyone in this movie is great. I was worried about the kids mainly because, kids aren't known for having the best performances. But in this movie, they really sold it. I mean, I know Sonny Soljic, I think I say his name, from the God of War reboot, where he voices Atreus, but I'd never seen him in an acting role, and he was great in this. And Raffi Cassidy, who played Kim, the older sister or daughter, is also really great in this movie. I'd never seen her in anything, but she was really impressive in this movie. Both kids got to stretch their acting chops a lot, and they both bring really important, powerful performances where, they're basically the bargaining chips in the movie. They really needed to be good actors, and I'm glad that Lanthimos got good kids for this movie, because they impressed me. Obviously, I've seen Barry Keoghan, and, I didn't know, actually, but I saw him in Saltburn, obviously. And I also saw him in The Banshees of Inisherin, which, Colin Farrell is also in. And even though his performance in that movie is kind of lesser because he's not a main character, I'm thinking mainly of Saltburn, where he, blows his character out of the water. In this movie, he plays that creepy, horrible, like, you want someone to hit this kid kind of character, and he plays it so well. Something about the way the dialogue is written in this movie is just so, and the way the actors deliver it is just so unnerving and so stilted and weird sounding that you're just waiting for some, bomb to be dropped in the dialogue. And there are a couple times it happens. I'm gonna kind of have to get into spoilers for that a little later, but the dialogue in this movie was equally as impressive as the excellent acting. And I have to credit as well the cinematography, because, to make a truly unnerving movie, all these aspects have to meld together to make it. And I think in this movie, they all meld together perfectly. I already talked about how good the unnerving score was. The acting is unnerving. The way they deliver the dialogue is unnerving. And the cinematography is just beautiful in this movie. Beautifully horrible. Just creepy. I'm thinking of pretty much every single shot where they walk down a hallway. And it is just, I don't know why or how Lanthimos ended up doing it, but it just manages to be so unsettling. The way the cam shakes above the person walking in the hallway, and each hallway looks infinite and just repeating on loop. It's so hypnotic, and it fits this movie's tone perfectly. As weird as it is to say that the cinematography fit the tone of a movie, but it does. In this case, it really does, because it's just insane how good the cinematography is. Even, I'm thinking to that shot where Martin and Kim are on a motorcycle, and Kim is just looking up at the city, and it's this deep blue color, and it just looks so beautiful. And because a lot of this film is set in a hospital, it's these constant, medical, almost gag-inducing lighting. And it unnerves the viewer equally as much as everything else does. And even when they get home, the lighting is always just kind of off enough to make you feel uncomfortable and kind of tense. It just makes the viewer feel unsettled. And, that's what makes this movie so great, and that's why The Lobster is so great. I can't really speak for Poor Things, but The Lobster especially. That movie uses a lot of the same tactics to make you feel kind of like grabbing your chair or your couch, just kind of waiting for something to pop out almost, because the whole movie just has you sitting there all tensed up, just waiting for something to happen. This movie killed it in that aspect, and I think that's what they really needed to kill for this movie to be as great as it is. And this movie is great. I'm not afraid to say it. This movie was marvelous, stupendous, whatever adjective you want to use. I loved it. But to get into more of the juicy story details, which is where this movie I think really shines, I'm going to have to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen The Killing of a Sacred Deer, please go watch it. It's on Netflix until the 22nd over here in the States. It's absolutely worth your time. If anything, just to see where Yorgos Lanthimos was right before making Poor Things, if you've seen Poor Things, because that movie is getting rave reviews, and just to see the origins of this guy, I think it would be worth watching this movie. But yeah, spoilers ahead, check this movie out. So the story in this movie is just amazing, and again, a lot of it goes to the acting talent of these people, but I mean, the adult duo in this movie, Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman especially, she is Colin Farrell definitely gets the meat of the screen time, he gets the main serving of it. He's constantly in the center of the screen kind of thing. But when Nicole Kidman gets a scene, she shines. She is excellent in this movie. It's all these little things that they both do. And again, it's like the stilted, weird dialogue, and it's the quiet, just staring shots, especially from Nicole Kidman. She has a lot of those in this movie, where she's just kind of looking. There's no dialogue. You can't even really see an emotion on her face. You could just tell something is going on up inside her head. And that style of acting works so well because of how weird and disturbing the story is. Even in that opening scene where Colin Farrell and Nicole Kidman, she pretends she's a knocked out patient, and Colin Farrell starts doing his thing in bed. It makes you just feel so uncomfortable in a good way, not like a uncomfortable, but like I want to watch this play out kind of thing. And there are a lot of moments like that, especially with Barry Keoghan's character. His entire character is just uncomfortable, wanting to see where it plays out. In that torture scene in the basement with Colin Farrell and Barry Keoghan, where he rips into his arm basically, and he tears out a chunk of arm. It's just so gross. And you're just sitting there just like, dude, this guy is insane. I loved it. I mean, the story is great, but the performances drive it home. And I've been caught up on the performances, but they are great. They are just unbelievably good. And I'm going to loop back around to it, but the kids in this movie are such great actors. I have to credit Sonny Soljic, because his character, Bob, I love Bob the whole movie, and I was sad to see him get killed at the end. But his character, just this almost not happy-go-lucky, but just he acts like a kid that age would. There's not a line of dialogue from him that sounds weird. And when Raffi Cassidy starts talking down to him, being like, Dad's gonna kill you, and you can't really do anything about it. And she's like, can I have your iPod when you die? You're just so angry. Personally, I wanted Kim to get killed. I wanted Steven to kind of accidentally spin around and shoot Kim. And when he pulls up his beanie and you see Bob with a hole in his chest, bleeding down onto the duct tape, I was just so sad. I kind of knew he would die because Bob, his eyes started bleeding or whatever. But it was still sad to see such a talented kid actor go. Or the character played by the talented kid actor. I do have to say that the CGI blood in that scene was a little weird. It just didn't look right. It was actually kind of, distracting. But it's only the real instance of CGI that I noticed. So, it wasn't too horrible. And again, I have to wonder, I don't know if it was a hospital set that they shot on or an actual hospital, but it just looks so real, and at the same time it looks so fake. Like, it almost looks like a prop hospital, as weird as it sounds. Just everything looks too barren. There's not enough movement, and it makes this story feel isolated. Steven is constantly arguing, at least in the first half of the movie, arguing with the hospital staff, being like, my kids, there's something wrong with them. It's not a psychological thing like Anna thinks. Like, there's something wrong with my kids. And when they go, we don't think you should have your kids here anymore, he gets pissed. He's like, if I was the head of this hospital, I'd be ashamed of myself. It's little things like that for Steven's character that just stand out in my head so much. And his weird delivery, and just everything about this movie is just purposefully like a painting, kind of off-centered. It's just enough to get you kind of weirded out and get you locked into the movie. And when this movie has your full attention, especially towards the latter half of it. It's just, it uses that setting and the idea and everything built up so well. And I mean, even the start of the movie, when nothing really happens for the first 30 minutes of the movie, it's just daily life kind of thing. Just the interactions that Stephen has with Martin are just so weird, and you don't even know why Stephen knows Martin. You don't know why they're talking. I'm going to be honest, I thought it was like a weird, like, pedophile thing almost, as much as I hate to say it. It's just, the entire movie is in your head. You're watching it and you're constantly trying to get ahead of it. And just when you think you're ahead of it, it jumps right back ahead of you. You go home and you think Stephen is finally going to kill Martin, and Anna goes, I let him go. You know, it's just little things like that that just work so well. But I think that's all I really have to say. I mean, this movie is great. Yorgos Lanthimos, I haven't seen enough of his stuff. I haven't seen Poor Things yet. But I mean, The Lobster and The Killing of a Sacred Deer, that's quite an impressive just 2-film streak to have. So I'm very excited to see Poor Things when I eventually get around to it. You'll definitely see a review up here. But yeah, I really like this movie. I definitely recommend you go watch it. Let me know if I should change anything, you know, check out my socials and my YouTube bio, that kind of thing. Please share this video. I'd love to have more people watch my videos, you know. I'm just going to be straight up about it. I'd love for more people to hear my thoughts, you know, even just to spark a discussion in the comments, you know. Maybe you didn't like this movie. Let me know in the comments. I'll talk to you about it, you know. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the theaters.